So I want us this morning to talk about dealing with disappointment. No, that's not true. No, actually, I have to say that whenever it is a little bit intimidating. I was never good at church stuff, and so watching you worship and sing, and these guys up here, it was amazing. I think for me, one of the things that made church a little bit weird was there's this whole lingo, right, that goes with church, and words that you use in church that you don't use anywhere else, and I was never good at that as a child. I still did stuff. I mean, I still participated, but I just didn't know the words. And we all know how that is. You do that, when you like my daughters and I. The only radio station we can agree on when we're in the car together is the oldies station, which is fantastic. I like my music better than I like theirs. But when we sing to the songs, I don't actually know the words, and that frustrates them. I just sing out, and they actually know. This is what kind of frustrates me. They know the lyrics to my songs better than I do, so I just make up words that sound like the real thing, And in fact, this was back before Christmas, but we were in the car together, and I knew the songs by the Beatles, and I knew it was either from the Sgt. Pepper album. This is a group from antiquity, you wouldn't know. But anyway, the Beatles, I knew it was from the Sgt. Pepper album or the White Album. But they had to actually explain to me, Dad, the actual lyrics are "The Girl with Kaleidoscope Eyes." Because I was singing "The Girl with Colitis Goes By." I thought just a wonderful song about a young woman with a disease of the colon. And they're going, "No, Dad, that's just gross." And that's kind of what I would do in church. When I didn't know the right words, you just... like you're doing the Lord's Prayer. All the adults stand up, and you want to get in on this, and so you're going, "Our Father, who art in New Haven, how do you know my name? Right? Lead us not into temptation, but deliver us some email." I mean, you don't know. I remember one time I stood up. I got very excited. I stood up and went, "Hallelujah," and I'm like, "Hallelujah," and I just didn't know. I want to talk with you for a few minutes this morning about one of those kind of church words. One of those words that we use in church that we don't really use anywhere else. It's the word incarnation. It's the word incarnation. It comes from the Latin word carne, which means meat. If you've ever had chili con carne, that's why it's called chili con carne, because it's chili with meat. Unless you have it at school, then it's chili without carne. But it's this notion that God came to this planet with meat on his bones, that God became a human being. This is a word that we use to try to capture some of the wonder, try to articulate some of the wonder and the majesty of these words from the Gospel of John. Let me just read you a few verses. John chapter 1, beginning in verse 1. "In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. He was in the beginning with God. All things were made through him, and without him was not anything made that was made. In him was life, and the life was the light of men. The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it." And then a few short verses later, this stunning proclamation in verse 14, that this word that was in the beginning, this word that was God, this word that was in the very beginning, John chapter 1, verse 14, that word became flesh and dwelt among us. We've seen his glory as the only Son from the Father, full of grace and truth. I got to be honest with you. I had actually been in ministry for a few years before I really understood the power of this idea incarnation. It was one of those words that I learned in seminary. We talked about it in my theology class. But I don't think I really began to grasp the wonder of it, the power of this notion of incarnation, oddly enough, until I taught my oldest daughter, Erin, how to operate a motor vehicle. It's not funny. I had, when I grew up in North Carolina. In North Carolina, when we took driver's education classes, I don't know what they do here in Pure, Michigan, but basically, we watched scary videos in driver's ed class, movies of just collisions, and I don't recall them telling us how to drive, but I pretty much knew how to wreck. And there were just all kinds of just gruesome, macabre, brutal videos. And I don't know what they watched in Aaron's driver's education class. I think it was maybe Catwoman. All I know is that when we got in the car together, all of a sudden it's like objects flying past us. Then we got out of the driveway. And it was just a nightmare of sharp turns and speed and quick stops. And of course, she gets this from her mother. And I should explain too, you may disagree with me about this, but I had a policy, don't hate me for this, but this is my policy. I said to my girls, I said, girls, if you ever want to use the family car, you're going to have to learn to drive with a stick and a clutch. I said, we're not going to buy a car with automatic transmission. I said, this way you can always get